Here we go, listeners of Phantology Podcast. Welcome to another episode. Now, if you like the content we're putting out, look us up on social media. You can find us at Phantology Books on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, even Reddit, all the social platforms. And if you'd like to chat more, you can join our Discord server. Find the pinned tweet on our Twitter account and hop in on the server and discuss about whatever you'd like to talk about. Now, here we go for today's episode. I have Ben and Josh on the line with me again today. This is Steven, and we're going to be reviewing Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is the first book of a trilogy, and it came out a few years ago to some really strong reviews. A lot of people have read it and had a lot of positive things to say about it. Josh and I read it a little bit ago, and Ben actually just finished. So we're going to try to recap for ourselves, and we're going to let Ben weigh in as our resident expert, so to say. How's it going, guys?
Good. It's going really well.
Happy to be here, Steven.
All right. So, Ben, since you remember the series best, give us a little bit of let's not do any spoilers yet. Give us a little bit of maybe a recap of some non-spoiler things. What did you like? What did you didn't like? Just get the conversation started for us.
Sure. And I don't know the series best. I know the book best. So I guess just so you know, it's impossible for me to spoil things in other books read them. So I really liked the pacing of the book. I thought that things moved really quickly. Premises, you have this lowly 16-year-old miner who kind of mines the substance that is supposed to allow society to function.
Isn't it like helium-3? It's an isotope?
Yeah.
And so it's supposed to terraform the planet or something?
Yeah. So he's supposed to mine the substance that will allow future generations to come and populate Mars. And conditions are terrible. And about a quarter of the way through the book, he discovers that in actuality, Mars is already populated, that it has been for like 500 years, that he's been lied to his whole life, and that this organization called the Society kind of dictates everything, and it's his mission now to take down the Society. And so the way he does, and so kind of the rest of the book is him trying to start doing it. So
okay, so there's our premise. Now, you mentioned that the action moves really quickly. I thought that was one of the strong points for me. It was hard to put down the book. I would say maybe the first 20 to 30% is a little slow with a lot of the events that you just described happening that are not super interesting. But once you get through that, there's a switch that gets flipped, and from then on, it's really fun, and I had a hard time putting down the book at all.
Yeah, the beginning of the book really kind of sets the expectation for the rest of the book, that it gives the character motive, I guess, in the first few chapters of the book. It makes it so that he's ready to do whatever it takes to get his form of justice. And so it gives a good foundation, although it moves a little bit slow.
Honestly, I thought the way that it did that was a little clunky. It just divided the book into two separate pieces. There wasn't a whole lot of overlap between the two pieces, even though there needed to be for the larger plot. And I think that gets fleshed out more in the rest of the trilogy. But as far as this book goes, honestly, for me, the first half of it, or maybe the first third, was boring, not that interesting, and then the rest was awesome.
You know, I'm going to actually push back on that. I think I actually have the reverse opinion. I really resonated with the first part of the book, and I don't want to get into spoilers yet, but I thought that characters were really well defined for that part of the book, and that some pretty heart-wrenching events happened that really made me relate to characters well. And then in the second part of the book, it introduced so many different characters and motivations that I had a harder time keeping them all straight, and it was more taxing to read than kind of the first part of the book. So
I think that the first part of the book is more focused on character, and the second part of the book is more focused on plot and action-y things happening. Is that fair?
That's fair, but there are a couple of characters like Cassius and Mustang that are introduced in the second half of the book that are huge for the rest of the trilogy, and you just get them through the action. But I thought the characters that was set up, the way that the action set up the characters was really strong.
I didn't really care about any of the characters in the second half of the book.
None at all. Who did you care about?
Okay, so this is my main criticism for the book, and I'll keep it spoiler free, but this is the reason why I haven't read the second, third, and are they coming out with the fourth?
Oh, you haven't read any of the sequels?
No, I didn't. I was not compelled
I
to.
see. I
I was
didn't
not
realize
compelled to go on, and I will because I want to continue doing these episodes, and I've heard good things about the second and third. But this was meant to be a character-focused book, I feel like, and I didn't connect to Darrow. I didn't really like any of the second or third level characters.
You didn't care for Cassius or Mustang?
No, not really, because I didn't feel like I knew any of their motivations. Their motivations, well, I won't keep it. We'll keep it spoiler free for now. But I didn't care about any of the characters' motivations. I feel like Darrow was just a James Bond type guy that could do whatever and always, was perfect. And I didn't connect to him. And for being a character focused book, because you just follow him, you don't really get viewpoints of other characters, right? And so I feel like it needed to make me care about him, and I didn't.
So, yes, I agree with you, Josh, but I think we need to get into our spoiler section more before we actually break that down. And before we do that, we need to get into our customary content warning. So, Ben, do you want to start us off there?
Yeah, so very high content warning for violence. I would say this is probably the second most violent book that I've ever read, second to the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie.
Give us give us a blow by blow. What can we expect?
So there is, I don't know if you're familiar with the movie 27 Hours, where a character, or it's based on a true story, but somebody is pinned underneath a rock and they have to kind of hack their own arm off.
What's the Benghazi movie? Isn't it a similar title?
13 hours?
13 hours. Okay, 13 hours and 27
something.
hours.
Sure. Well, I don't know, but there's a scene that's very similar to that in this book. So, and there's also themes of cannibalism explored. Just, yeah, it was gruesome. So
I don't remember all of that being on camera as much. Like, you don't ever see cannibalism happening. I read it and I don't remember being super taken aback. Maybe I'm just completely blind to violence at this point because I'm ruined. But
I think that the thing that got me most is the sexual violence in there. There's a lot of, they use rape as a form of manipulation. And so there's a pretty high trigger warning, I feel like, for that as well. If you've had experiences with like sexual assault or rape in your life, then that happens in this book. Was there much else, other sexual content in this book besides that?
Nothing gratuitous. In terms of language warning, there were like in-world swears that were combined with like light earth swears, I think. So like gory damn was in there a lot. And that was kind of, yeah. So kind of a combination of in-world and earth-world swearing.
This is a break from our content warning, but one criticism I had was I did not like the in-world language in this book. Not the swears, just the way that he combined words together and he randomly capitalized the middle of words sometimes to make his own little language. And I thought it sounded archaic and weird, and I was not a fan.
So I was going to ask, do you think that is, in programming, sometimes we do camelCasing? Do you think that it was kind of like referencing that and kind of saying, 500 years from now, we're going to kind of be using coding practices in our speech?
Come on, man. I don't want to think about camelCasing. This is my time off work.
That's kind of what I thought, Ben. I thought that that's what it was trying to do, some meta analysis of where we're going to be in the next 500 years. But that was like the only thing that they did was make up words and had the casing like that.
I'd never even thought about that. I just thought, I don't know. I don't think that he did the greatest job of putting us into the future because there were so many things like the focus on mythology that harkened back to very early Earth days. But the society had also advanced so far scientifically. I never really got a great explanation for exactly where society was at. It was a little odd.
I agree. Which is another kind of criticism about this is that it's the setting there were just way different settings throughout the book. And the second setting that was explored with the, so generally light spoilers, is like the game setting, if you will. That was really well created, and you could experience it, but then it just totally took you out of all the other settings that had been created.
Yeah, agreed. It seemed like it was almost just dystopian for the sake of being dystopian. He was writing the book and he wanted it to be dystopian, so therefore the settings were what they were, and there wasn't a real great reason for why they were what they were, if that made any sense.
Agreed.
Yeah, so I think that if you are looking for a fast-paced YA novel with a little bit of gory violence thrown in, then this is the book for you. I mean, it has differing levels of intricacy that you can kind of try and get into and understand, but it also has a super BA main character that is just going to go kick some butt and provide you with a really fun journey to go along with it. If you read like Hunger Games when you were in 12th grade or 10th grade and you loved it, then you're going to like this book too.
Yeah, and this book has appealed to a lot of people. A lot of people have read it. A lot of people like it.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like this is if Hunger Games was high school, this is college.
Yeah.
This is your graduation from Hunger Games into a little bit more adult. Kind of like The Magicians is to Harry Potter, if you've read those. It's just a more adult, more serious take on a similar genre.
Okay, so getting into spoilers, we've talked about some of these things, but let me just read a little blurb that I wrote up here. In the dystopian future, humanity has spread out across the solar system and terraformed planets. We have also split into caste systems based on colors, from the magnificent golds to the lowly reds. Darrow is one such red that lives on Mars, mining the dangerous depths of the planet. As the action starts, he learns that the golds have been lying to him, and the work they're doing to terraform Mars is already complete. This knowledge comes at the price of his wife's life. Now set on vengeance, Darrow infiltrates the gold training ground known as the Institute in order to take down the gold supremacy from the inside and break the chains that have bound his people. So I didn't really go into many details on the last part of the book, and I figured that's maybe where our conversation will pick up. So once Darrow's wife is killed, he undergoes this transformation process to be turned into a gold. This is kind of where the action picked up for me, but I don't know if it was my favorite thing. It happened kind of fast, and then all of a sudden, the character that you've been meeting in the first third of the book is completely different. He's still the same guy, but all of a sudden he's this perfect, magnificent being. It was almost similar to The Witcher when Yennefer gets transformed and she becomes sexy. Pretty much what happens to Darrow here. Neither one was really my favorite.
Yeah, I agree. I had kind of the same thought. I was like, this is just, it was like almost blatantly just like, hey, here's the process that we're going to make this person awesome. And there's really no explanation for it other than this is something we.
And here's what I didn't understand. So they make him into this perfect gold and they give him all this knowledge and they say, you're going to now be this paragon of virtue. And then he meets the golds at the Institute who have all been born into this and should have all this background knowledge. And they're all just these awful, corrupt, terrible people. And so it's somewhat of a political statement. I feel like it's trying to get at, but I don't understand. I mean, is the fact that Darrow has been raised a red, is that really an explanation for why he is the only morally non-corrupt person?
Well, I think that he realizes as part of his journey through the Institute or whatever, that there are other people that become his friends and that he can't really look at as just some evil gold anymore. So I think that, I don't know if I agree with you that they're all evil and corrupted, but certainly most of them are.
Well, and I think that the whole premise of the book is that the golds also almost keep themselves in servitude, in the fact that they put themselves through this game that really breaks them down and makes them all equally morally bankrupt. You know, they all become murderers, they all become killers, they all become ruthless and do whatever it takes, and so it lowers them all to the same standard.
Yeah, I thought that was a super actually smart take on it, was that the Golds are putting themselves through this harrowing experience because they don't want to be like Rome and get comfortable in their power. They need to have this humbling experience. That was, I mean, props to the book for kind of creating that. I thought that was really cool.
So the Institute was my favorite part. Sounds like Ben didn't enjoy it quite as much, but essentially it's like the capture the flag game that I always wanted to play in scout camp, but was never able to because I was never actually able to, have weapons and fight, really. Like, that's not allowed, but here it is. And it was really fun. I mean, yeah, people are being injured and some are being killed, but
and cannibalized and raped and tortured.
But we're following, Darrow. We're following Darrow. He's a good guy. He's winning the game.
Okay.
It just seemed really fun.
So here's my problem, is that I kept waiting for the Institute to end. I never thought it was going to be the whole book. I thought he was going to get out of the Institute, and go back and try and get his sponsor and all of that, and the plot was going to move along. So I just kept thinking the Institute would end any chapter now, and it never did. It was just, that was the book, the remainder of the book. And so I think that's why it bothered me.
I don't know why you thought the plot was going to progress like that. I was always pretty clear on the fact that, hey, this book is probably going to end when the Institute ends, and the other books are going to explain what happens afterwards.
Well, the beginning of the book sets up a promise of, we're going to have Darrow injured. He's going to get vengeance on the Golds. How's he going to do it? He's going to infiltrate the Institute. We never really got a resolution for the initial conflict that it sets up.
So I don't know. Maybe that was my bad. Maybe I set inappropriate expectations for myself, and it messed up the pacing of the book for me. But that's what happened on my read through. So
no, I think that's fair, and that's one thing that we've taken Sanderson's little lecture series. That's one thing he talks about, is setting up a promise at the beginning of your book and then fulfilling on that. And I think that's a fair criticism to say that this book didn't do it. However, the series does. So if that was your hang up, I think as you read more, your expectations will eventually be fulfilled.
Cool.
So one thing that I struggled with was the viewpoint. So this book is written in first person, right? So it's from Darrow's perspective. And I think that gives Darrow some huge plot armor, as does any first-person narrated book, I think. Because you know that he's writing this, or he's relating this story, so he's not going to die. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Well, there's not very many characters that kill. There's not very many books that actually kill their main character.
Yeah, that's true.
Not every book is A Song of Ice and Fire, right?
King of the North. I agree, Ben. I wouldn't say I had an issue with it so much as the plot armor, as much as it was just, I always struggle to get into first person whenever a book is written in first person. It just takes me a while. It takes me like half the book, and by then I've already kind of decided that I don't like it as much.
Well, not even the first person, but it was first person present tense, which is doubly. I don't mind for first person. I love Name of the Wind. I like Dresden. Both are first person. I think not every author does first person great, but I think it can be written really well. So I like it when it's good. But present tense, I never like it. I don't understand the draw for it. This is why I stopped reading the N.K. Jemisin series, The Broken Earth, because the present tense thing was just too much for me. So I do not understand what present tense brings to the writing. Someone please tweet at us. Tell me what is great about present tense. I hate it.
You know what was great about present tense, Steven? Is the Hunger Games sold a ton of copies of books.
Okay. So maybe the Hunger Games has brought present tense to everyone.
So seriously, I think that's what it is. I think that this book was like, we're going to go for the Hunger Games audience, and the Hunger Games audience likes present tense, first person present.
Well, so is it just a hallmark of YA? Present tense means if you're going to write a YA series, which this series kind of is, but maybe we only think it's YA because of the present tense.
Well, I think present tense, along with the fact that it's following a young adult, you know?
Going through a hellish game type environment to overthrow a society that is oppressing them.
Yeah, it's if you were to do a one sentence summary like you just did, you would be describing the Hunger Games, which is one of the more popular YA books of time, right?
Yeah, I would say this book is a hodgepodge of a lot of YA and dystopian books. Hunger Games, maybe the most so, but it's almost some Harry Potter in the way that they're sorted into houses. It's some Percy Jackson with all of the mythology. It's some Divergent with the class systems. It's
Yeah.
but I do think that it's more of the sum of its parts, and that it takes all those things and creates its own thing.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
that.
And just because it has tropes doesn't mean it's bad. I think that for what it was, I can see why people like it. I didn't like it as much, but I can see why people do.
Yeah.
Do you think you will like the rest of the series more if I promise you that it does eventually fulfill on the promise on the setup at the beginning of the book, and it changes settings and the characters get fleshed out more?
Yeah. I think I will. I think, okay, so I've been reading a lot of Stephen King lately. I've read Gunslinger. I've read most of his critically acclaimed works. And Stephen King is a master at creating characters. His books don't have many characters, but the characters that he has are, you understand them. You don't always like them. You hardly ever love them, but you understand them. And you understand all their motives, and you understand why they do the things that they do. And I just feel like for a book that should have been so character focused because of its narration style, and because it focused so much on Darrow, that when I didn't love and connect with the character, that it fell flat for me. So I hope if the other books can rectify that problem, then I have no problem with the story and the setting and all of that. I want that to continue, but I need more character work and better character work.
Ben, you said you liked the characters at the beginning.
Yeah, I think I really like Darrow pre-Gold. I mean, his motivations were just to try and get sugar for his wife. You know what I mean? Like that is a pretty like noble, like try and win the laurel to get sugar for his family, and he's going to be the best hell driver that there is.
Is that something you can relate to?
I could relate to that. So one thing that I didn't understand was how Darrow became impossibly genius. Like when he goes to become transformed to gold, the way he like convinces, oh, what's the guy's name? Mickey or somebody, whoever transforms. Yeah.
Mickey and Dancer are the two sons of Ares that set him up there. Mickey's
Yeah,
the carver guy.
He like convinces the carver guy that he's a genius by like solving this Rubik's Cube type puzzle super quickly. Like just because he has super good reflexes and is a hell driver doesn't mean he's like this genius. Also, like the way that he convinces Dancer that he's legit is by figuring out that out of two cards, they're both the same card, so he eats one. Like that to me is a pretty simple test and doesn't take a genius compared to like this Rubik's Cube type impossible game that does require genius. Like there's just like some type of disconnect for me there on why he's like the best gold.
It just felt a little lazy with stuff like that. Like, oh, we're just going to tell you that he's a genius with this hand wavy type thing.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact details. I do remember that they essentially downloaded to him a bunch of knowledge in the process of making him a gold. And that made him very smart, or he was able to recall all of this old knowledge. But the whole time throughout his time in the Institute, he was supposed to be at a disadvantage because he hadn't been raised to gold. But in fact, that was a huge advantage for him and led to him eventually winning the whole thing, right?
Yeah, and I don't think them downloading the information made him a genius. I think that was just so that he would understand like the things that a normal gold would understand. But then he goes and like scores like he only misses one question out of hundreds of questions, and so he has like the quality control people against him. I don't know. It just seemed very like a weird way for the character to go.
He's a bit of a Mary Sue.
Yeah.
if you have problems with how smart Quoth is in Name of the Wind, you're gonna have the same problems here. Okay, so we're gonna keep this one fairly short since this was a shorter book, and let's go into our worst of the best segment. So we'll start with Josh, since I know he's eager to point out more problems with the book. Tell us the one thing that put a damper on an especially good part of the book for you.
So my worst of the best came at the very end of the book when, after they storm Mount Olympus and kick butt and take names and do all that. And then I was just so disappointed that he became a Lancer for the Arch Governor Augustus. I don't know why. I just feel like he didn't actually grow as a character by accepting that offer. I feel like he just did what he would have done at the very beginning of the book. Like, he was always trying to get that, and he didn't change, and he just accepted it.
But wasn't he just accepting that so he could further infiltrate the society and take him down?
Yeah, and so maybe this is why I need to read the other books, but for me, it just felt like he should have learned a different or a better way to infiltrate the society and take them down. You know, like,
Yeah,
he just spent this entire book leading these troops and gathering this army full of misfits, and now he's just going to it didn't feel like he learned anything from that. He just
I think that there were kind of two paths set before him. Path one was like the theme of something new was kind of harped on, like, I'm something new, I'm something new, I'm something you haven't. And so path one was, I'm not going to accept anybody's patronage, and I'm just going to be something new. Like, I'm going to take on society on my own terms. And then path two was, I'm going to do what Dancer expects me to and get in cozy with people that are high up and follow that path. And so he definitely took option two, which I think is a fair criticism.
Thanks, Ben. But that scene was pretty epic with him taking down Mount Olympus. That was great. That was great. Awesome.
I think the issue you have more than the character, Josh, is just the fact that the plot didn't write itself another great option. He had to accept the patronage because otherwise what was he going to do? Right?
Well, like Ben said, like, he could have said, I'm going to form my own. I'm forgetting most of the in-world stuff, but he could have formed his own.
Well, what I was kind of hoping for, I think what Josh is getting at is that, like, he boomers like everybody and takes like this Generation Z and like rises up and like just conquers people using his army.
Come on, this is a small group of young golds on Mars. There's a whole solar system with millions of people out there. I think that is a little unrealistic.
Oh, well, not that he takes his little group and overcomes everyone, but if he's like, okay, we're going to become like the elite task force of like Marines type thing, and we're going to do our own. I don't know. Like, there's just so many cool ways it could have gone, and it didn't. It just stuck with what they said was going to happen from the very beginning.
I really hope you guys like the next two books, because I do think that the next two books do a good job of bringing back a lot of the same elements that made the first book successful, but changing the formula. I think sometimes with these types of books, you have the first book be super successful because you have the really popular school type setting, and then the author doesn't know where to go from there. But the next two books have similar types of conflicts, but in different settings with different stakes, and the stakes continue to raise and get higher and higher. So I think from our conversation we had today, you guys will like the next two, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, so my worst of the best. So I thought that one of the more intriguing parts of the book were between Darrow and the Jackal. I thought it was intriguing because they never met each other until like the climax/falling action of the book, and yet there was still some like palpable tension. But the part that I did not like was how it was revealed to Darrow / the audience that Mustang was the Jackal's twin sister. First of all, I'm not going to say like I called it, because I didn't know it would be like exactly his twin sister, but I knew like it was pretty clear and should have been to Darrow that there's some type of relationship between the characters. And so the fact that like this genius person needed like his patron to tell him that was kind of weird. And the fact that that knowledge was given apart and away from either the Jackal or Mustang kind of made it lose its shock value. I thought that he'd need to learn that information in front of one of those characters so that he could have a visceral reaction and maybe do something he regretted, or something else should have happened besides him learning that information away from either of those characters, and then having it be immediately resolved for him with Mustang bringing the Jackal back and prove loyalty.
So there could have been a more dramatic reveal that then led to further conflicts.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough. Okay, my worst to the best. I already told you I didn't really like the naming very much. I like the name Mustang quite a lot, but does it say in this book that her actual name is Virginia?
Yeah.
That's like a grandma name. Come on. What type of name is that for the strong, independent, beautiful woman that is in this book? Didn't like it.
Didn't love it.
It should surprise no one if you've listened to podcasts before to know that I'm a fan of the love interest. Any good-looking, independent love interest is someone I'm going to root for.
Classic.
Okay, so thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. This is our review of Red Rising by Pierce Brown, and it sounds like Ben and Josh are going to continue going through the series, and I'm happy to hop back on and review a little bit more. And until next time, see you guys later.